Good morning, students. Welcome back to our YouTube channel schoolquiz.com. As you know, my name is Danish Agarwal. My name is Danish Agarwal. As we have started with our chapter number 2, that is matter around us pure? Is matter around us pure? So, in today's video, we will discuss what is suspension and its properties. What is suspension and its properties? So, let's start. That is, first of all, what is suspension? First of all, what is suspension and its properties? So chapter number 2 is matter around us pure. Just like our previous videos, I will give you brief introduction. That is, first of all, matter can be classified as pure and impure. Pure can be classified as elements or compounds. We have covered this topic also. And impure can be classified as homogeneous and heterogeneous. In homogeneous, it is further divided as true solution. We have also covered that part. And in heterogeneous, we have already covered colloidal solution. And now we will discuss suspension. Okay. So this is a brief introduction. Now we will discuss our topic, or today's topic, that is suspension. As we know, that is suspension is a heterogeneous mixture. And whose particle size is greater than 100 nanometer. So we will start here. That is a suspension. A suspension is a hetero. A suspension is a heterogeneous mixture. What is a heterogeneous mixture? I have told you several times. Heterogeneous mixture in which distinct boundaries are easily seen. Distinct boundaries can be easily seen, and whose composition is not uniform throughout the solution. So first of all, a suspension is a heterogeneous mixture. In which the solute particles do not get dissolved, but remain suspended throughout the solution. As we know, example is like sand in water. So if there is a water in which sand particles are there. So these particles get settled down at the bottom. Remain suspended throughout the solution, or we can write it as throughout the bulk of the medium. Example as we have already taken, that is sand in water, or we can write it as chalk in water. So this is our topic, suspension. As we have already told you that the size of particles of suspension is greater than 100 nanometer. the size of the particles of suspension is greater than 100 nanometer, or we can say that the size of particles of the suspension is quite big. So now we will discuss properties of suspension. Properties of suspension. We will discuss properties of suspension. So first property is suspension is a heterogeneous mixture. So first property is suspension is a heterogeneous mixture. Suspension is a heterogeneous mixture. Second property is its particles can be seen by naked eye. Its particles can be seen with or by naked eyes. As we see that the particles of suspension is bigger, due to which we can see it with our naked eyes. As in case of colloidal solution or true solution, we can't able to see the particles or see its constituent particles with our naked eyes, but in case of suspension we are able to see that particles. So next point is third point is its particles can scatter a beam of light, but up to a limited extent, or we can say that to a limited extent they can only show Tyndall effect when up to which their particles hasn't get settled down, or we will see here that suppose it is a beaker of water. It is a beaker of water. Suppose these are the particles, suppose these are the particles of sand. These are the particles of sand. We just have added the particles of the sand. Due to which some particles are present there, some particles are at the bottom. When we suppose this is our torch. If rays get pass here, light gets scattered. And they can show Tyndall effect, but up to a limited extent. After some time, all the particles get settled down at the bottom. And they can't show Tyndall effect. Or we can say that suspension shows Tyndall effect up to a limited extent, or we can say that up to for some time. They show Tyndall effect for some time. If the particles get settled down at the bottom, then they can't show Tyndall effect. So we will write here its particles can scatter a beam of light, but up to a limited extent. Its particles can scatter a beam of light, and makes the path of light visible. Now fourth point is it is unstable. That is, the particles get settled down at the The particles get settled down at the bottom. Bottom at the bottom when suspension is left undisturbed. For example, there is a water. Suppose sand particles settle down at the bottom. If they are left undisturbed, due to which they can't show further Tyndall effect. Or we can like left in the disturbed, and they can be separated by filter paper. As we see, the size of particles of suspension is big, and they can be separated by filter paper. Or we can say that by the process of filtration. Okay. When the particles settle down, when the particles get settled down, the suspension breaks. And they can't show Tyndall effect more. So this is all about suspension and its properties. One note I will write you here. One note is given, that is note. It is like the insoluble particles in a solution. The insoluble particles in a solution in a suspension. The insoluble particles in a suspension are called suspended particles. They are insoluble, that's why they get settled down at the bottom. If they are soluble, that they will not settle down at the bottom. They get mixed throughout. As they are insoluble, they get settled down at the bottom. And these are called suspended particles. Whereas the solvent is referred as medium. So this is all about our today's topic, that is suspension and its properties. In our next video, we will cover difference between true solution, colloidal solution, and suspension, which is very important from the paper point of view. As I have already explained you all the three topics, that is true solution, colloidal solution, or suspension. I gave you a homework that you by yourself draw the major differences between true solution, suspension, and colloidal solution. It will enhance your understanding. And we will discuss these major points in our next video. So thank you very much, students. This is all about what today's topic, that is suspension and its properties. So thank you very much.